Switzerland 2, Algeria 0, and 88 years of knockout heartbreak is finally over. Welcome to FairPlay Football AI Review. This was a statement night in Vancouver, a performance that announced Switzerland as genuine contenders in this tournament. This was a round of 32 collision that carried enormous weight for both sides. Switzerland entered the knockout phase as group winners with 7 points, their best-ever World Cup group stage finish, seeking to end a drought that stretched back to 1938. Algeria, having navigated a demanding qualification campaign, knew that anything less than victory would end their tournament dream in the round of 32. The pre-match narrative was shaped by Switzerland's extraordinary group stage confidence. They had beaten Canada 2-1, thrashed Bosnia and Herzegovina 4-1, and Murat Yakin's side arrived in Vancouver with momentum and a settled squad. Algeria under Vladimir Petkovic had shown vulnerability in their final group preparation, drawing 3-3 with Austria and losing heavily to Argentina. The Desert Foxes desperately needed their key players to deliver at the critical moment. Switzerland lined up in a 4-2-3-1, with Gregor Kobel anchoring behind a defensive line of Ricardo Rodriguez, Nico Elvedi, Manuel Akanji, and Dennis Zakaria. Remo Freuler and Granit Xhaka provided the double pivot, with Johan Manzambi, Ruben Vargas, and Dan Ndoye in support of the lone striker Breel Embolo. Yakin's system was designed for vertical efficiency, quick transitions, direct lines into Embolo, and the license to attack with purpose through Manzambi's electric runs. Petkovic deployed Algeria in a 4-3-3, built around the threat of Riyad Mahrez on the right and the creative spark of Houssem Aouar and Fares Chaibi in the central spaces. Nabil Bentaleb and Ramiz Zerouki sat deep to protect the back four of Rafik Belghali, Aissa Mandi, Rami Bensebaini, and Ryan Ait Nouri. Ibrahim Maza led the line, tasked with holding, linking, and finding pockets between Switzerland's organized defensive structure. The tactical battle was defined by a fundamental mismatch in transition. Switzerland's double pivot freed Manzambi to operate between the lines almost unchecked, exploiting the space Algeria's three-forward system left behind their midfield. Whenever Algeria's attacking trio pressed high, they created channels in behind that the Swiss were brilliantly equipped to exploit on the counter, particularly through Manzambi's pace and intelligence in the left half space. Algeria actually opened brightly, asking early questions. In the 6th minute, Houssem Aouar was perfectly placed to meet Rafik Belghali's cross, but failed to connect cleanly, and that miss would prove catastrophic. Switzerland absorbed the early pressure without alarm, their shape compact and their defensive line well organized, waiting patiently for the moment to strike. That moment arrived in the 10th minute. Switzerland won possession in their own half and immediately released the 20-year-old Johan Manzambi down the left on a devastating counter. Manzambi drove at the Algerian defense with purpose and composure beyond his years, carrying the ball deep before squaring it precisely across the 6-yard box. Breel Embolo arrived on cue to steer the ball into the net from close range, 1-0, and Switzerland had struck exactly as they had been set up to. The goal galvanized Switzerland and visibly shook Algeria, but Petkovic's side continued to push, searching for an equalizer. Fares Chaibi was everywhere in the first half, driving forward and testing Switzerland's defensive shape, though his aggression caught up with him in the 36th minute when he was booked for a serious foul on Manzambi, earning the yellow card that would restrict his effectiveness in the second period. Algeria's best first-half response came in stoppage time when Ibrahim Maza dragged a snapshot wide of the near post. It was one of the clearest they managed all evening, and the fact that it came as the half was ending illustrated just how effectively Switzerland had contained the Desert Foxes. The XG figures at the break told their own story. Switzerland were already building a decisive lead in quality, not just scoreline. Halftime arrived with Switzerland firmly in control. They had been tactically superior, better organized in transition, and ruthlessly efficient in front of goal. Algeria needed to find a way to get the ball higher and faster to Mahrez and Maza, and reduce the space Switzerland were exploiting so freely on the break. Petkovic faced genuine tactical questions about how to change the game without sacrificing defensive solidity. Algeria came out for the second half with intent, but Switzerland were breathtakingly quick to respond. Within seconds of the restart, Dan Ndoye struck, and his 46th-minute goal is now recorded as the fastest second-half goal in a World Cup knockout match since Davor Šuker's effort for Croatia against France in the 1998 semi-final. Ndoye collected a loose ball after Rafik Belgali's clearance fell straight to him at the edge of the box and drove a low shot into the net. 2-0, and the tie was effectively over. The double substitution Algeria made in the 58th minute, Amine Gouiri on for Zerouki and Jawen Hadjam on for Aouar, was Petkovic's attempt to inject pace and directness. Gouiri offered more movement in behind, and Hadjam brought energy on the right flank. But by this point, the match psychology had shifted irrevocably, and Algeria were now chasing a game against a side that defended 2-goal leads with clinical confidence. The 71st minute brought a wave of changes from both dugouts. Murat Yakin withdrew the outstanding Johan Manzambi for Noah Okafor and brought Fabian Rieder on for Ruben Vargas, consolidating possession and managing energy. Petkovic simultaneously replaced Bentaleb with Hicham Boudaoui and took off Mahrez for Anis Haj Musa, the removal of his captain signaling the shift from winning the game to managing the defeat. The decisive moment was undoubtedly the 46th-minute goal. The psychological impact of conceding virtually on the restart, before Algeria had even touched the ball in the second period, drained whatever hope Petkovic's side had preserved at half-time. A 2-goal deficit without a meaningful reply at the World Cup round of 32 is a mountain no team had truly scaled in Vancouver, and Algeria never came close to scaling it. Switzerland's 45% possession share might suggest Algeria were the dominant force, but those numbers are deeply misleading. Algeria accumulated their 563 passes primarily in their own and middle thirds, cycling possession without genuine penetration. Switzerland's 438 passes were more purposeful, more progressive, and crucially more dangerous. Switzerland registered 11 shots in total to Algeria's 8, but the quality gap was enormous. The Swiss put 5 shots on target to Algeria's 2, and their expected goals figure of 2.27 against Algeria's 0.82 reflects how thoroughly they controlled the game's genuinely threatening moments. Chaibi hitting the woodwork once offered fleeting hope, but Maza's 6 total shots amounted to very little real danger for Kobel. Defensively, Switzerland were exceptional. Akanji and Elvedi combined for 6 tackles between them and gave Maza almost nothing to work with all evening. Algeria's wide threats through Mahrez and Ait Nouri were well managed by Rodriguez and Ndoye, who showed remarkable defensive discipline alongside his attacking quality. The outstanding performer on the Swiss side was Johan Manzambi. The 20-year-old was electric throughout his 71 minutes, contributing a goal, an assist, the threat of his pace every time he received the ball, and the composure to draw the foul that earned Chaibi's booking. He finished the match with 32 accurate passes and 2 shots, and his counter-attacking intelligence was central to everything Switzerland created. He is already 10th in the World Cup's top scorers list, with 3 goals this tournament. The player who struggled most noticeably was Riyad Mahrez. The captain managed 4 shots, but 2 were blocked, and he never truly troubled the Swiss defensive line. His removal in the 71st minute felt like an acknowledgement rather than a tactical surprise. He had been unable to find space or rhythm against Ndoye's disciplined tracking, and at 33, the physicality of the encounter clearly affected him as the match wore on. Murat Yakin's management was close to flawless. His decision to deploy Manzambi in such a high and free role was the masterstroke that unlocked the match inside 10 minutes. The timing of his substitutions at 71 minutes was precise, preserving energy and managing cards without disrupting the rhythm of a side that was already firmly in control. Petkovic, by contrast, will question whether his double substitution at 58 minutes came too late and whether Mahrez was ever the right focal point against Switzerland's wide defensive discipline. Head-to-head history between these nations is thin, and this match stands alone as their first meaningful competitive encounter at the World Cup. Switzerland's victory writes the first chapter of what may develop into a compelling rivalry, but for now, this result emphatically establishes Jakin's side as the dominant force between these two nations at the highest level. Switzerland's recent form entering this match was excellent. A World Cup group stage with 7 points, victory over Bosnia 4-1, and a squad that had shown resilience in drawing 1-1 with both Qatar and Kosovo in the lead-up. This was a team peaking at the right moment, with depth throughout the squad and no injury concerns disrupting their preparation. Algeria's form told a different story. The Desert Foxes had drawn 3-3 with Austria and lost heavily to Argentina in their most recent competitive tests, and that inconsistency manifested on the night. Their best players never reproduced the form they had shown in African qualifying, and the heavy defeat to Argentina seemed to leave a psychological scar that Petkovic could not heal in time. Switzerland advances one of the tournament's most convincing last 16 qualifiers. With 7 points from the group stage and an expected goals return of over 2 against Algeria alone, Jakin's side have the shape, the firepower in Embolo and Manzambi, and the defensive solidity in Kobel and Akanji to go very deep in this competition. Algeria, meanwhile, are eliminated, a painful exit for a talented generation that produced moments of quality but ultimately could not sustain it when it mattered most. Switzerland now face the winner of match 87 back in Vancouver on the 7th of July. Whether that is Colombia or Ghana, Jakin's men will be favored, and their momentum at this point in the tournament is the kind that genuinely strong sides carry to the very end. Algeria face an off-season of reflection, a squad full of European-based talent that promised so much but delivered too little at the critical stage. Switzerland 2, Algeria 0, a clean, authoritative victory that ended 88 years of World Cup knockout anguish with something approaching total control. This was not a fortunate win or a smash-and-grab result. It was a tactical masterclass built on transition, pressing triggers, and a 20-year-old who played like a veteran on the biggest stage. And the rest of the tournament should take them very seriously indeed. Stay with us here on FairPlay as the round of 32 continues to deliver drama. Switzerland's next test comes in 4 days, and if they perform anything like they did tonight in Vancouver, the quarter-finals may only be the beginning of this story. That's the FairPlay verdict on this one. If you want more analysis like this, follow us, find us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at FairPlay AI, and follow Anthony personally on X at Anthony Fairplay. See you next match.